Jai Shri Radhe. Today is the 61st day of our recitations of Shri Chaurasi Vaishnavan ki Varta. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Shri Vallabhadish ki Jai ho. Shri Gosai Ji ki Jai ho. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Varta 50, the story of Vishnu Das Chipa from a village near Agra. In the eternal Leela, he is a Sakhi of Shri Chandravadiji named Kamala. He was born into a family of cloth printers in a village near to Agra. His elder brother was married off when he was 20. Vishnu Das's father would print the cloth and Vishnu Das would go to Agra to sell it. Once when he was thus engaged, Sri Acharyaji came to Agra. Vishnu Das had gone to Agra with a beautiful roll of printed cloth. Sri Acharyaji saw the cloth and asked Krishna Das to buy it, whatever price they asked. Krishna Das asked Vishnu Das to sell him the entire roll of cloth, whatever it would cost. Vishnu Das asked for 4 times more than it was worth. Krishna Das counted out the money, paid him, and told him to bring some more of this lovely cloth if he had any. Vishnu Das was surprised and thought that Krishna Das must be a great soul of spiritual power who did not need to bargain. He bought the entire roll just like that. He decided not to sell him any more cloth in case he and his relatives all became renunciates. He said to Krishna Das, "Please take your money back and return the cloth to me." Krishna Das said to him, "Are you just stupid? I have paid for the cloth and I don't want to give it back. Take even more money from me if you want. I have already paid 4 times the price." Vishnu Das replied, "Look, you are obviously a great saint. If your money comes to my house, we might all become renunciates. So I don't want to sell you to you. Give me the cloth and take back the money, please. I cannot take your money." Krishna Das told him, "Listen, Sri Acharyaji has praised this cloth and told me to buy it, so I don't care what you say. I will not return it to you. Sri Acharyaji does not accept anything from that given by those who are his surrendered. Anything apart from that given by those who are his surrendered disciples. Take the money back if you want, or don't, or take the cloth or don't take it." Vishnu Das asked him where he could find Sri Acharyaji. Krishna Das pointed out that he was sitting under the banyan tree. Vishnu Das came there and paid his respects to Sri Acharyaji, then addressed him thus, "O Maharaj, if your disciple has such principle, then you must be the Lord incarnate. Please accept me into your fold." Sri Acharyaji questioned him, "You spend the whole time printing cloth. How will you become my disciple? How will you be able to sustain the level of conduct and self-sacrifice that a disciple of the path of grace must follow? How will you be able to sustain the level of conduct and self-sacrifice that a disciple of the path of grace must follow?" Vishnu Das then made the following supplication: "If I become your disciple, then I will have nothing to fear from my family expectations. My parents will respect my decision. If they also surrender to the path, then we can live nicely together, and if not, I will live separately. Please bless me and accept me into your fold." Sri Acharyaji told him to bathe in the Sri Yamuna river and then come back to him. He went and bathed, but when he was coming back, a leaf plate off which someone had been eating blew up and touched him. Considering it necessary to bathe again, he started to turn back towards the river. Sri Acharyaji asked him why he was going back there again, and he explained what had happened. Sri Acharyaji asked him how he had begun to understand the rules of purity. Vishnu Das said, "Number 1, I really don't know anything, but with your grace I have started to grasp the concepts." Sri Acharyaji said, "Don't go now. I myself will be going there to perform my midday ablutions, so if you come with me then, and I will initiate you there and then." Vishnu Das pleaded, "Please do not take so much trouble for my sake. I will bathe and return to you. If you have to go, then okay, but if you are doing it just for me, then I don't want to bother you." Sri Acharyaji was pleased to hear his reasoning and said, "Listen, for the sake of souls like yourself, I have left the eternal Leela and come here. For your sake I wander around the earth. I have defeated the impersonalist philosophy and established the path of devotion. I have written many books for Vaishnavas to learn from. Therefore, why do you ask me not to take trouble?" Vishnu Das replied that it was his duty to speak, thus, for he was but a servant, and that was his path. Sri Acharyaji took Vishnu Das to the banks of the Sri Yamunaji, and after his bath he initiated him with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandh. Vishnu Das then requested, "O Maharaj, I am a fool. Please teach me about the Srimad Bhagavatam and your treatises so that I may understand the principles of your path." Sri Acharyaji taught him the Seva Phalam treatise, the rewards of Seva. After hearing it, Vishnu Das said, "From reading this treatise, I have certainly grasped the concepts of all the Shastras and the Puranas, all the Vedic scriptures. However, I still do not properly understand the full purport of this treatise." Sri Acharyaji explained that the Seva Phalam was indeed a very difficult text to understand, and that it was very good that Vishnu Das had asked such a question. He then wrote the Seva Phal Tika, or commentary. When he heard this, Vishnu Das immediately grasped the meaning of all the Pushti Margi principles. He became absorbed in the mood of the verses. Krishna Das then spoke to him, "Here is your roll of cloth. If you want it, take it with you. You can donate it or take payment for it." Vishnu Das replied, "Because of you, I have been accepted by Sri Acharyaji. You are certainly a great and accomplished Vaishnav. So please, do not address me thus. Whose cloth is it, and who will offer it? My body and very life, breath now belong to Sri Acharyaji. Whatever Sri Acharyaji wants to do with it, please let it be used thus." Krishna Das was pleased to hear these words and said no more. Sri Acharyaji then asked him to go home, but Vishnu Das objected, saying that his only home was now in the dust of his lotus feet. "Where will I go if I leave them?" Sri Acharyaji said, "That is fine, but I must go now to Adel. Go to your village, and then when Sri Gosaiji comes to Gokul, you can go and reside there with him. The world cannot now get in your way. You can actually live anywhere. You are related to Sri Gosaiji in the eternal Leela, and therefore you should stay close to him, for he will fulfill all your heart's desires. I have accepted you, so from now on you will remain immersed in the service of the Lord." Vishnu Das bowed low and returned to his village. Sri Acharyaji went to Adel and offered the printed cloth to Sri Navaneet Priyaji. Vishnu Das went home and told his parents that he wanted to live separately from them. They asked him why. "It is just something I must do," he said. His wife then approached him. He told her that if she wanted to serve the Lord together with him, then she would have to go to Adel to be initiated. "Only then will I drink water that you touch. Until then do not come near me." His wife gave him at least 10 insults and walked away. She announced, "If you so much as mention worshipping the Lord, then I will not even look at your face. I would have to become a renunciate or a wandering nun in order to worship the Lord. I have my parents and my brother, so why would I need to worship the Lord at all?" Vishnu Das felt happy that the Lord had cut his worldly ties. "My wife left me by her own choice, so this is good." Vishnu Das printed a small amount of cloth and sold it in Agra and made enough to survive. Day and night his mind was immersed in the service of Sri Acharyaji and his writings, especially his Sri Subodhiniji, or commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Part 1. Quite a while after this, Sri Gosaiji came to stay in Gokul. Vishnu Das was old by then. When Sri Gosaiji came to Gokul, Vishnu Das paid his respects and told him this whole story of acceptance by Sri Acharyaji. "Now I have come to your shelter. Please give me some service." Sri Gosaiji said, "You are the recipient of Sri Acharyaji's grace, so please say what service you would most like to do." Vishnu Das considered that since he was old now, he would not be able to sustain much service, so he chose to be a guard by Sri Gosaiji's door. Bhav Prakash. Surdas Ji has sung, "I, Sur, the most fallen of the fallen, am now blocking his way by lying at his door and refusing to move." Vishnu Das considered, "I am indeed unworthy, so let me remain here by Sri Gosaiji's door, and in this way I shall get to have his sight as he comes and goes." Thus he asked to be the door guard. Part 1 continued. Sri Gosaiji consented. Every time he saw Vishnu Das, Sri Gosaiji would call out, "Oh, Vishnu Das, are you well?" Vishnu Das would reply, "In the shelter of these lotus feet I am fine." Sri Gosaiji thus regularly blessed Vishnu Das, who, in this way, lived happily by his door. Part 2. Lots of Brahmin pundits would come to debate with Sri Gosaiji. Vishnu Das thought to himself, "These pundits all come to Sri Gosaiji and give him lots of botheration. Let me discuss with them and I will send them on their way." He did just this. After discussing with Vishnu Das, they had nothing left to say. The pundits thought, if we are rendered speechless by just the man at the door, how did we even consider ourselves worthy of discussing with Sri Gosaiji? The pundits kept coming and kept turning back from his door. One day Sri Gosaiji asked the Vaishnavas why there were no pundits came any more to talk with him. They explained that many did come, but that after that they had discussed with Vishnu Das, they turned away defeated with nothing more to say. Sri Gosaiji called Vishnu Das to him and said, "You are the vessel of grace of Sri Acharyaji, and you embody all the scriptures. Thus you can defeat all these so-called learned men. However, we must not send them away empty-handed. Let them come to me. I will chat with them and send them away with some gift at least. Vishnu Das agreed to let them come. I didn't want you to have to make too much effort, that's why I disposed of them. But now I will let them come. Vishnu Das was such a graced soul. Bhav Prakash. Sri Gosaiji's son Sri Raghunathji composed a text called Navaratnam. He wrote therein regarding his father, calling him Vipradaridriya Dawagni, meaning the one who extinguishes the fire of poverty that burns the Brahmins. Vipra Daridya Dawagni, one who extinguishes the fire of poverty that burns the Brahmins. Sri Gosaiji always gave to the Brahmins who visited them, thus deserving this title. Part 3. There was a Brahmin from the Bhatt family who would regularly say to Sri Gosaiji that he would like one day to feed all of the Sri Gosaiji's Vaishnava disciples. Sri Gosaiji would always reply, "Don't get involved in such matters. What will you gain?" He did not listen to this, however, and said it over and over again. Sri Gosaiji heard it but just kept quiet. This Bhatt was the father-in-law of Sri Gosaiji. One day he invited him to his house in Mathura to have a meal with him. Sri Gosaiji went, telling Vishnu Das to accompany him, bringing with him a full water pot. Sri Gosaiji ate the meal and stood up. Vishnu Das washed his hands and gave him water to rinse his mouth. Sri Gosaiji said, "I am going to Gokul now. Please pick up the leftovers and wash the plate and then return." He left for Gokul, and Vishnu Das washed a spot on the ground and put a leaf plate down there, onto which he put all of Sri Gosaiji's leftovers. He washed and set aside the plate that Sri Gosaiji had used and sat down to partake. Bhatt came to him with some fresh preparations and asked him why he was eating Sri Gosaiji's leftovers when he could have some fresh food. Vishnu Das retorted, "I don't want any of your food. If you touch my plate with any of that, then my plate will become polluted." Bhatt left angrily. Vishnu Das brought the prasad to Gokul and went to sit on Sri Gosaiji's porch as usual. Bhatt also came to Gokul and complained to Sri Gosaiji, "Your low-caste servant refused to eat my food, saying it would pollute his leaf plate." Sri Gosaiji told him, "You see, you always said that you would like to feed all of my disciples. However, you could not even manage to feed my one so-called low-caste disciple, so what to speak of all the rest?" Bhatt was ashamed and kept quiet. Bhav Prakash. This story explains that it was not appropriate to accept anything from Bhatt's hand. Bhatt was also hoarding some charitable donations that were really Sri Gosaiji's. Therefore, Sri Gosaiji took Vishnu Das there with him because he knew that Vishnu Das would never falter on correct Vaishnav conduct. If any Vaishnava of a weak foundation had gone there with him and they had partaken of Bhatt's food, then they would have lost all their merit, for their awareness might be small and the principles would not be enhanced by such eating. So he took Vishnu Das with him, who said that his plate would be polluted by the touch of Bhatt's food. This revealed Bhatt's nature. Anything that he touched would be polluted even before preparation. Now a question arises. Bhatt is a Brahmin, he is a relative of Sri Gosaiji, and Sri Gosaiji ate his food, so why would it be so wrong for a Vaishnava to do it? Here is the answer. The Shastras have described two types of relations, those who are related through blood or marriage, or Deha Sambandhi, and those who are related through righteous sentiment, or Bhava Sambandhi. In regards to Sri Krishna Leela, the Yadav and Kamsa, etc. are the first kind, and the second kind are the Vraja Bhaktas, the Gopis. Sri Thakurji recognized the whole of the Yadav race to be a burden to the earth and so destroyed them. He was related through pure love to the Gopis and he was bound by the cords of their loving mood for him. Even though Sri Thakurji lived within the Yadavas, they never recognized him as the supreme god, and the Gopis knew his true form from the minute he appeared amongst them. They immediately came to Sri Nandaraji's home and bowed to his feet. Bhatt thought of Sri Gosaiji as his own relative and also constantly criticized him. He coveted Sri Gosaiji's wealth. What else to say? He had a demonic personality. True devotees wish only to serve, and part of their humility is to partake of their guru's leftovers. If one were to eat from Bhatt's kitchen, they would definitely get a polluted intelligence. Sri Gosaiji is the Lord's form. In the same way that the Lord was able to swallow up the forest fire, whilst no one else would be capable of this, so in the same way Sri Gosaiji was able to consume Bhatt's food for the sake of family ties, but no other Vaishnava should or could do that. If a very low-caste person were to have Sri Yamunaji or Sri Gangaji water in their vessel, a Vaishnava should not drink it. Mahaprasad is of the highest purity, like Gangaji water, but the example is here that just as the purest water falls as rain during the Swati Nakshatra, or the planetary position of great auspiciousness, but it metamorphosizes according to where it falls. If it falls into a particular shell, it grows into a pearl. If it falls into bamboo, it becomes a herbal remedy. If it falls into the mouth of a snake, it becomes poison. Thus there are so many differences to consider. In this very way, whether it is Bhatt or a follower of the path of lawful limitation, a Vaishnava should not eat there. One may say, but Mr. Bhatt had been initiated with the Lord's name, and he does make seva, so why should one not partake from him? Here it is explained, the true devotional path had not yet touched him. Yes, he heard the Lord's name from Sri Acharyaji's son Sri Gosaiji, but he still made distinctions between Vaishnavas on the basis of their caste. This simple fact destroyed all his merit. Where is his true seva and where his true surrender? If one does not accept the Guru's foot water or prasadi leftovers because of the caste consideration, then no merit of righteous path remains. It is appropriate Vaishnava behaviour not to even consider caste when it comes to foot water or leftovers. To have accepted the other food served up by Bhatt would thus have been a relinquishment of appropriate Vaishnava behaviour. Sri Gosaiji granted devotion to his Vaishnavas, and through this story of Vishnu Das, Sri Gosaiji taught these principles to all of them. Thus concludes Varta 50, the story of Vishnu Das, the cloth printer from near Agra, although in truth there is no end to his story. Shri Vallabhadisha ki jai, Aaj ke Anand ki jai, sabhi Vaishnavon ki jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe.